Hi, I'm Ray Williams of openimage.com.au. Today I'm going to take on workflow 2. So this is the second part of the one I did a few weeks back, where we're going to look at bringing some images into Bridge, which is where I'm sitting at the moment, renaming them, put them in the right folder. So what I've actually done, I show you the folder system here. So if you look at the folder system, it's sitting on my desktop, which is the very first thing you see. I put it in a folder that's called 042715 Callan Park, which is where I shot it. And inside of that folder, I created something called RAW, and that's the RAW file with all the RAW images inside it. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So when you download your images, whether you put it in straight from the card or from the camera, this is how it should look. You should have all the images placed quite happily. Now what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'd always like to rename my files, and I'll rename it at this point so there's no confusion later on. So first things first, I'll go up to Edit, select all, or Control or Command A, of course, which is that one. Then go Tools, Batch, Rename. Now you can choose to have a whole set of numbers for your batch rename. I'm not going to go that way. This box has only got, as it says down here, 96 items, so I really only need to have 2 digits. Alright, that makes sense. Sequential numbers, and you're going to start with 1. Yeah, happy with that. So when I go rename, it'll go off and it will rename all of them, starting from 1 through to 96. And there it goes. Right, okay. And it'll keep on going till it's finished. There we are. So that's the first part of the process out the way, which is renaming. Next bit is I'm supposed to select what I consider to be the shots I'm going to work on. Now this gets a bit tricky, so let's see if we can work it out first of all. First and foremost, I'll create a folder in here and call that folder, in fact, we can do it the other way, hold on. Come in here, click on your first image and press spacebar. What that's going to do is give you a full image of whatever it is. So I'm going to run through, and while you're doing this, to choose the number 1 or the best shots, I'm just going to hit the letter 5, as in 5 stars. And if you look at the bottom left hand corner, it would tell me, you can see the 5 stars pop up on the bottom left. Alright, so I'm running through, and this was just taken as a rough image, some rough images. Happy with that one. I'm going to go for top 10, I think. I like the colouring on the sky of that one. Maybe that one. That one. That one. And maybe that one, and one more, and then that'll be all I need. That one. Okay, and then you press escape. That will bring you back to your screen. So as you can see, some of them have got 5 stars and some of them haven't. So what you can do then to get just the 5 stars up is come over here to your filter, and if I click at the side of the 5 stars, it will give me just the ones which I've created a 5-star image for. So I did say 10, I've got 8. So there we go. These are the ones I'm going to play with, and these are the ones I'm going to work with. But first of all, I have to tell Photoshop that I want these to be the ones that these are the ones which are going to go into the PSD folder, or a folder called PSD, which is also going to sit next to the RAW folder. So first and foremost, I will come up and say Edit, select all, and then I tell it to open it in the Photoshop. So now it's going to take it, because they're RAW files, it's obviously going to take it into the RAW converter. I've got one JPEG file, it looks like. Okay, so in the raw converter, we're where it's sitting now, just waiting for these to come in. Here we go. And at this point, obviously, you can do some adjustments. So I'm just going to light this up a little bit, not too much, and I may take a little bit down. That's good, and give it a little bit of clarity, not too much. Wonderful. So I can come through and do all sorts of little mini changes as I want to these, how I feel like it. And you know, obviously you understand this part of it. I've taken you through the raw converter before, but let's say I go auto and then drag this back a bit. It's going to give me a little bit of texture. Happy with that from an imaging point of view. So this part I'm not overly stressed about. And go open image, tell it when it's done, and it's now finished. And there was one image which came over, which was a JPEG, which we just get rid of. Okay, so if I come back to the raw file, it's going to give me all of these again. Happy with that. I would select all, and now what I'm going to do is ask it to create a PSD. Here we go. So I could take JPEG if I wanted a JPEG version. At this point I don't. I just simply want a nice maximized PSD version and tell it to run. Once that runs through, it'll create its own PSD folder, and that will then be the PSD. So I'll have PSD folder as well as raw folder in there, which means that you're selecting away from the main mix of images. So that's just done one. Gonna take a bit of time, hang on. Right, so with all of that complete now, it means that if I come back, unhook that and roll down, it should give me a PSD folder, and it does. And I can cut that away from here so that it sits on the root of the drive, which is there. So now I have a PSD folder, which is my first pick, if you want to call it, and then I have a raw folder which has everything else in it. Right, so those are the two pieces, the first part of the puzzle. And then obviously what you would then do is come into PSD, choose an image and do some work on it. And then when you're finished with that image, this dependent on where you want to actually export it, whether it be you want to send it out to the web or so on, then you may want to change it into a JPEG. Again, I would use the same process to do it. I would select all, tools, Photoshop image processor, but this time not PSD here. I would tick JPEG. If it was going out to the web, I wouldn't need it anything more than 1000 by 1000. So I'd have it tick resized and then add 1000 by 1000 and tell it to run. So what that's going to do is take those images now and create a JPEG version of them. Okay, that's done. So now if I come back and I look at, there's the JPEG folder, I can cut it from there and once again put it alongside the others here. So in here we've got the JPEG version of the PSD. There's the PSD version of the raw files, and everything, the original raws are sitting in there, and that's how I do for every shoot. That way, if I actually just simply want to send something to a client or to somebody who I've shot for, I'll just simply come into the JPEG here and then send it from here. The PSD is always with me so that I can change, twist, add names, borders, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff, right? And of course the raw is always with me, full stop. The way I would go about it is then before you create the JPEG, obviously you do your PSD and all the changes you need to do that, and then when you're finished in this one, then you create a JPEG version of that one. That's how I would normally suggest it do. I know a lot of people going down this path and working it like this, and it works perfectly for them. Hope it works for you. See you next time.